Is Bitcoin dirty? Is it boiling the ocean? My name's Mitch. This is Pablo. Welcome to Mitch Take. In this video, we're going to address some of the energy concerns regularly leveled at Bitcoin. It uses too much energy. It wastes energy. It uses dirty energy. A lot of the arguments are so misguided or just downright incorrect that it's difficult to know where to start in debunking them. Let's start with what they get right. Bitcoin, and specifically Bitcoin mining, uses a lot of energy. That's it. But does it use too much energy? First of all, it's important to understand that from the network's point of view, this energy use is a feature, not a bug. But what do I mean by that? Well, let's briefly revisit one of the main points from my money video, namely that sound money indicates that someone, somewhere, has spent time and energy to produce it. We saw that if someone found a shortcut to produce money for less time or less energy, it often had drastic effects on the economy. Gold is the ultimate example here. It's extremely energy intensive to mine, taking several tons of processed rock to produce just a 1 ounce gold coin. This energy and time expenditure is what gives it value. It's proof of work done. Now apply this to the Bitcoin network. Miners demonstrate proof of work by spending energy to solve computational puzzles. The more energy you spend, the quicker you solve the puzzle. Whoever solves it first adds the new block to the end of the chain and receives some Bitcoin as a reward. Another way of looking at this is that the total energy spent on mining legitimate blocks builds a digital barrier protecting the network. A malicious miner would have to spend more energy than that entire barrier contains just to have a chance of attacking it. So proof of work makes it impossible to cheat the network on the energy side, whilst its coded supply schedule makes it impossible to cheat on the time side. It requires time and energy to make money, so it should require time and energy to create money. Compare this to fiat currency, where money is created in a split second, at the flick of a switch, and at the whim of a tiny group of people. What do you think is going to be better money in the long run? So that's why the Bitcoin network costs energy to maintain. But does it use too much? To answer that, we need to look at the benefit it brings to humanity. Bitcoin is a complete and secure rules-based monetary system, separate from any sovereign entity, allowing anyone with an internet connection to escape financial repression, inflation, or any sort of capital control. In a period of an explosive increase in central bank money printing, coupled with the many instances of purposeful currency debasement in the past, what price can you put on the soundest and most self-sovereign money ever created? And who are these people to tell the free market that it's wrong? I haven't mentioned how much energy Bitcoin uses because my point here is one of principle. It's worth it. But let's get some perspective. In practice, Bitcoin is estimated to consume around 110 terawatt hours of energy a year. I have no idea what that means either, but I can tell you it's 50 times smaller than the US, 10 times smaller than always-on electrical devices. It's even less than domestic tumble dryers. It's 15 times less than the global electricity lost in transit every year. Doesn't sound like a lot to me in the grand scheme of things. This brings us to the next argument, that Bitcoin is dirty, with miners using vast amounts of climate-killing fossil fuels to run the network. This argument makes more logical sense, because really it's not the amount of energy consumed which matters, but the amount of carbon it produces. It's also the argument which is easiest to answer objectively. Even the most conservative estimates suggest that nearly 40% of the energy mix miners use is renewable energy, and that's higher than any major country or any industry. Some reports estimate the figure at nearer 80%. On top of that, the trend is that these figures are increasing every year, and they haven't been updated since fossil fuel-heavy China forced miners to relocate to other countries. The claims that Bitcoin is dirty are actually quite ironic, because not only is it objectively false, but it also seems apparent that Bitcoin will actually be a net positive for the environment. Hear me out. Bitcoin has a high renewable energy percentage because it's attracted to the cheapest energy. And these days, that energy is almost always surplus green energy. Miners are highly mobile. They can just unplug and go to the cheapest source. In effect, this puts a bounty on the production of cheaper green energy, which just drives innovation. One of the major issues renewable energy faces is that there's a heavy upfront cost to set up production. The potential to mine Bitcoin makes projects much more economically viable because they know there will always be a base level of demand from the Bitcoin network. On top of this, renewable energy plants often end up creating too much energy for the local region to absorb, leading to a lot of waste. Miners can harvest this otherwise wasted energy and put it to use. The revenue generated could even be used to buy energy from neighbouring areas at times of excess demand. There's a similar example from the process of oil extraction, which releases a significant amount of natural gas as a byproduct. Instead of flaring or venting this gas, which companies are doing at the moment, they can now use it to fuel Bitcoin miners instead, not only putting the energy to use, but also converting it to CO2 rather than methane, which is much worse for the environment. The underlying theme here is that electrical energy is typically a very localized form of energy, difficult to efficiently store or transport, so leads to lots of waste and underdevelopment of otherwise viable renewable sources. Bitcoin can step in and plug this gap, helping existing projects and opening up many more possibilities. Just imagine what this could mean for remote and poverty-stricken locations in the future. With the ability to instantly monetize energy on location without the need to transport it, almost any potential renewable energy source can generate wealth for the surrounding area. So I've got one more thought to share in a second, but hopefully up to this point, I've shown that, firstly, Bitcoin's high energy use is necessary for it to be a sound money by design, and it brings with it incalculable benefits, which in my opinion, and that of the free market, vastly outweigh the costs. Secondly, the claim that its energy mix is dirty is objectively false. It's one of, if not the, cleanest industry in existence, and its clean energy usage is consistently trending higher. Thirdly, the Bitcoin network will be a force for good for the environment and the switch to renewable energy. It provides a buyer of last resort to any project, anywhere, removing many of the problems industry faces and effectively subsidizing the harnessing of sustainable energy sources. Now, before I finish this video, I'm going to briefly mention the impact Bitcoin can have on us as individuals and how even this can have powerful knock-on effects on the energy front. I'm going to introduce the concept of time preference, which is the current relative value of receiving something now versus receiving it in the future. Now, you might have heard of the experiment where scientists offered kids a marshmallow now or 2 marshmallows in 5 minutes. Kids with high time preference, preferring things now, took the 1 marshmallow immediately. Kids with low time preference, able to delay gratification, sat it out for 5 minutes and received 2 marshmallows. Many other similar experiments have been performed since that first one in 1972, and most have found correlation between low time preference and indicators like high SAT scores and competency. On a very simple level, becoming a Bitcoiner almost forces you to lower your time preference. Spending money on high time preference consumables becomes increasingly difficult when the alternative is to save in a sound money which is appreciating by 200% a year. This undoubtedly will lead to less energy misuse, less waste, and ultimately foster a low time preference mentality in people, which will serve them well in many other walks of life. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.